What happens when a spoiled prince thinks he can walk into a television studio and demand special treatment from one of the toughest hosts on television? It only took 19 seconds of pure entitlement for everything to explode in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. Last night, viewers witnessed the most shocking meltdown in talk show history as a heated clash between host and guest spiraled completely out of control. This is the exclusive inside story of how one interview went from civilized conversation to total chaos, ending with the most dramatic ejection ever seen on live television. The studio lights were blazing hot that evening as Piers sat behind his polished desk, straightening his tie one final time before the cameras rolled. He had conducted thousands of interviews over his career, facing down politicians, celebrities, and royals with equal measure of respect and tough questioning. Tonight would be no different, or so he thought. Good evening, I'm Piers Morgan, and tonight we have a very special guest joining us. Piers announced to the camera with his trademark confidence. Please welcome Prince Harry to the show. The prince walked onto the set with an air of casual arrogance, waving briefly to the audience before settling into the guest chair. He immediately began adjusting his position, clearly uncomfortable with the studio setup. "The lighting is quite harsh in here, isn't it?" Prince Harry commented, squinting slightly as he looked around the studio. "Could we perhaps dim them a bit?" Piers smiled politely but firmly. "I'm afraid the lighting stays as it is, Your Royal Highness. It's set for optimal television viewing. Now, shall we begin?" "I suppose we have no choice," the prince replied with a slight edge to his voice, already showing signs of irritation at not getting his way. "Let's start with your recent comments about the media," Piers began, leaning forward slightly. "You've been quite critical of journalists and their coverage of your family. Some would say that's rather rich coming from someone who's made millions from tell-all interviews and book deals." Prince Harry's expression immediately hardened. "That's completely different, Piers. When I speak, it's my truth. When the media writes about me, it's often lies and speculation. But surely you understand that journalists have a job to do?" Piers pressed. "We ask questions that the public wants answered. Isn't that democracy in action?" "Democracy?" Prince Harry let out a bitter laugh. "You call hounding my family democracy? You call invading our privacy democratic?" The tension in the studio was already palpable, and they were barely 5 minutes into the interview. Piers could sense the prince's defensiveness building, but he wasn't about to back down from doing his job. "I call it holding public figures accountable," Piers responded calmly. "Something that perhaps you're not entirely comfortable with." Prince Harry shifted in his chair, his jaw clenching visibly. "I've been held accountable my entire life. Every move I make is scrutinized. Every word I say is twisted. And yet here you are, on my show, speaking freely," Piers pointed out. "Nobody forced you to come here tonight. You chose to be here because you have something to say, correct?" "I came here because I thought I might get a fair hearing," the prince shot back. "But I can see I was mistaken." The audience could feel the atmosphere growing more charged with each exchange. Piers maintained his professional composure, but there was steel in his voice. "A fair hearing means I ask the questions that need asking," Piers explained. "Not the questions you want me to ask. Now, let's talk about your decision to step back from royal duties. Many people felt abandoned by that choice." Prince Harry's face flushed red. "Abandoned? We were the ones who were abandoned. We were hung out to dry by the very institution we served." "But you had privileges that come with responsibilities," Piers countered. "Surely you understood that when you accepted those privileges." "Privileges?" Prince Harry's voice was rising now. "You think being born into this family is a privilege? You think having every aspect of your life controlled and monitored is a privilege?" Piers leaned back slightly, recognizing the signs of someone about to lose complete control. "I think millions of people would consider your position quite privileged, yes. Those people don't know what they're talking about." Prince Harry snapped, his composure completely cracking. "They see the palaces and the titles and think it's all wonderful. They don't see the prison. It really is." "A prison with golden bars, though," Piers observed dryly. The comment hit its mark perfectly. Prince Harry's eyes blazed with fury as he gripped the arms of his chair. "How dare you?" he shouted, half rising from his seat. "You have no idea what my family has been through. No idea of the sacrifices we've made." "Sacrifices like multi-million-dollar Netflix deals?" Piers asked, his tone still measured despite the prince's outburst. That was the final straw. Prince Harry shot to his feet, pointing an accusing finger at his host. "I don't have to sit here and take this from you," he declared, his voice echoing through the stunned studio. "I came here in good faith, and you're treating me like some common criminal." Piers remained seated, looking up at the furious prince with calm determination. "I'm treating you like any other guest who comes on my show. with respect, but also with honest questions. Honest questions? This is character assassination. Prince Harry was now pacing behind his chair, his hands gesturing wildly. This is exactly the kind of treatment that drove us away in the first place. The studio audience sat in shocked silence, witnessing what was quickly becoming the most dramatic interview meltdown in television history. Camera operators moved closer, ensuring every moment was captured for posterity. "Your Royal Highness," Piers said, his voice taking on a firmer tone, "I suggest you sit back down and we can continue this conversation like civilized adults." Civilized? Prince Harry's laugh was harsh and bitter. "There's nothing civilized about this ambush you've set up." "This isn't an ambush," Piers replied firmly. "This is journalism. This is what happens when public figures are asked to explain their actions to the public they claim to serve." Prince Harry whirled around to face the host directly, his face contorted with rage. "I don't serve anyone anymore. That's the whole point. I freed myself from that system. And yet you still want all the benefits that come with your title," Piers observed. "You want the respect, the platform, the influence, but none of the responsibility that comes with it." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Prince Harry stood frozen for a moment, his chest heaving with barely contained fury. The entire studio held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. "You know what?" Prince Harry finally spoke, his voice dangerously quiet. "You're just like all the rest of them. You pretend to be different, but you're exactly the same." Piers straightened in his chair, sensing the conversation was about to take an even darker turn. "I'm not pretending to be anything. I'm doing my job, which is asking the questions that matter." "Questions that matter to who?" Prince Harry demanded, stepping closer to the desk. "To you? To your ratings? Or to the people who actually want to understand the truth?" "The truth is exactly what I'm after," Piers replied, his voice steady but with growing steel. "But you seem more interested in your version of events than any objective truth." Prince Harry slammed his hand down on the desk, causing the water glasses to jump. The sharp sound echoed through the studio like a gunshot. "My version?" he shouted. "I lived it. I was there. You were sitting in your comfortable studio making judgments about things you know nothing about." Several audience members gasped audibly. This was beyond anything they had expected to witness. Piers, however, didn't flinch. "I've covered royal stories for decades," Piers said calmly. "I've seen the good, the bad, and everything in between. What I haven't seen is someone so determined to play the victim while simultaneously profiting from that victimhood." The words hit Prince Harry like a physical blow. His face went white with rage, then immediately flushed red again. "Victim?" he repeated, his voice barely controlled. "You think I chose any of this? You think I wanted to be born into this nightmare?" "I think you've made choices," Piers replied firmly, "and I think you're unwilling to take responsibility for those choices." "Responsibility?" Prince Harry was now leaning over the desk, his face inches from Piers. "I've taken more responsibility than anyone should have to. I've sacrificed everything for my family." "You've sacrificed your duty to your country?" Piers countered, not backing down an inch. "You've sacrificed your relationship with your own family? And for what? A life in California making Netflix documentaries?" That was the breaking point. Prince Harry's composure shattered completely. "That's it," he screamed, sweeping his arm across the desk and sending papers flying. "I'm done with this. I'm done with you." Piers stood up slowly, his height giving him a commanding presence as he faced the raging prince. "Your Royal Highness," he said, his voice now carrying absolute authority, "I think you need to calm down." "Don't you dare tell me to calm down," Prince Harry shot back, his voice cracking with emotion. "You sit there in your ivory tower, judging everyone, thinking you're so much better than everyone else?" "I don't think I'm better than anyone," Piers replied, his tone becoming dangerously quiet. "But I do think I conduct myself with more dignity than what I'm witnessing right now." The insult landed perfectly. Prince Harry's eyes widened with shock and fury. "Dignity?" he sputtered. "You want to talk about dignity? What's dignified about ambushing someone on live television? What's dignified about having a tantrum when someone asks you difficult questions?" Piers shot back, his patience finally showing signs of strain. Prince Harry took a step back, his chest heaving as he struggled to regain control. For a moment, it seemed like he might sit back down and attempt to salvage the interview. Instead, he pointed an accusing finger at Piers and delivered what he clearly thought would be the killing blow. "You know what your problem is, Piers? You're jealous. You're jealous that I was born into something you could never achieve, no matter how hard you try." The studio fell into dead silence. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Piers looked at the prince for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, measured, and absolutely final. "Your Royal Highness," he said slowly, "I think this interview is over?" Prince Harry blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "What do you mean over?" "I mean," Piers continued, moving around his desk to face the prince directly, "that you've just shown everyone watching exactly who you really are. And frankly, I don't think my viewers need to see any more." "You can't end this interview," Prince Harry protested, suddenly realizing he was losing control of the situation. "I came here to tell my story." "And you have?" Piers replied coldly. Loud and clear, Prince Harry looked around the studio desperately, as if seeking support from the stunned audience or crew members. "This is ridiculous," he declared. "You can't just kick me off your show." "Actually," Piers said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "I can. And I am." He turned toward the cameras, his professional demeanor returning as he addressed the viewers directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that you've had to witness this display. This is not the kind of behavior we expect from our guests, regardless of their position or title." Prince Harry stood frozen, apparently unable to believe what was happening. "You're making a huge mistake," he said, his voice now pleading rather than angry. "People will hear about this. They'll know what you did." Piers turned back to face him, his expression mixture of disappointment and finality. "They'll know exactly what happened here tonight," he agreed. "They'll know that when faced with legitimate questions about your actions and choices, you chose to throw a tantrum rather than provide answers." Prince Harry opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The fight seemed to drain out of him all at once. "Security will escort you out," Piers continued, his tone now purely business. "Thank you for coming on the show." As if summoned by his words, 2 security guards appeared at the edge of the set. They approached the prince respectfully but firmly. "Your Royal Highness," one of them said quietly, "if you would please come with us." Prince Harry looked around the studio one final time, his face a mask of shock and humiliation. The audience sat in stunned silence, still processing what they had witnessed. "This isn't over," he said weakly, but the threat carried no weight. Piers had already returned to his desk, shuffling through his notes as if the prince had already ceased to exist. "Actually," Piers said without looking up, "it island." The security guards gently but firmly guided Prince Harry toward the exit. As they reached the edge of the set, he turned back one last time. "People will remember this," he called out, his voice echoing in the silent studio. Piers finally looked up, meeting his eyes across the distance. "Yes," he said simply, "they will." And with that, Prince Harry was escorted off the set and out of the studio, leaving behind the most dramatic and explosive interview in television history. Piers turned back to the camera, his composure completely intact. "We'll be right back after this break," he announced calmly, as if nothing extraordinary had just occurred. The camera stopped rolling, but the impact of what had just happened would be felt for years to come. In just 19 seconds of pure entitlement and rage, a prince had revealed his true character to the world, and a veteran host had shown exactly why he remained one of the most respected journalists on television. The most shocking talk show meltdown ever caught on camera was over, but its legacy would live on forever.